So hey guys, Treehouse of Horror 5 is episode 6 of season 6. It was directed by Jim Reardon and it was written by Greg Daniels, Dan McCarth, David X. Cohen and Bob Cussell. A lot of writers. Now, seeing as this episode is split into 3 segments with an opening, this video will be a little differently structured to the regular Simpsons Good or Bad. The 3 segments, plot, jokes and characters will be applied to each of the 3 segments in this episode separately. So I'll do this for future Treehouse of Horror episodes as well, and any other episodes that are structured like it. So of course, this episode is one of many Treehouse of Horror episodes, and it follows the 3 segments: The Shinning, a Shining parody, Time and Punishment, and Nightmare Cafeteria. The episode opens with Marge telling the audience that the episode is too scary for them, and that Congress will not allow them to play the episode, so instead they play part of the film 200 Miles of Oregon. I like this opener overall. It sets the episode up very well, and it makes sense that Marge would be presenting this and not, Homer. Then the segments cut to the audio of Bart and Homer. We get some more jokes here, and again I think the characters were chosen well. And then finally we cut to our little opening credits, which was filled with the classic Treehouse of Horror joke, like seeing Skinner get beheaded. And we cut to the first segment of the 3, The Shinning. So now the opener is out of the way, let's dive into the plot of The Shinning. We start with the family driving to Burns's mansion, but Homer forgot to lock the front door, so they go back. They repeat this joke again, and then on Thursday, Lisa remarks they left Grandpa at the gas station, but Homer is past the point of caring. The family arrive and are greeted by Mr. Burns, and this acts as our inciting incident for the segment. Mr. Burns gives a tour, and we get a Shining call-out with the blood flooding out of the elevator. Bart meets Willie in the maze, and Bart reads his mind. Willie tells him that he has the Shinning. We see Mr. Burns leave with the beer, and we find out he has also cut out the television. Homer notices no TV or beer, and he nearly has a breakdown, but goes to visit Moe at the bar. Moe tells Homer he'll give him a beer if he kills his family. This serves as our plot point too, and shifts us into the second act. Marge looks for Homer and finds some weird writing on the typewriter, and then on the walls. Homer goes crazy in this really well performed segment, and Marge tells him to back off, getting a baseball bat. This serves as our midpoint, as it is the no return point for Homer and for Marge. Marge knocks him out and locks him in the pantry. Moe and some other monsters then free him from the pantry, and Homer goes to kill his family. We get a few bait and switch jokes with the parodies of that Shining scene, until Homer breaks down the right door. This right here is the plot point 2, and it shifts us into the final act of the segment. The family runs away, try to call Wiggum, and Bart uses his power to contact Willie. Willie comes a-running to help, but he is quickly killed by Homer. The family run outside as Homer closes in on them. This is our climax, and it ends with Bart showing Homer Willie's portable television thingy. Homer and the family watch TV outside until they're frozen. Nice resolution. Honestly, this segment in terms of plot is amazing. It's an amazing parody of The Shining, and it is well paced. Homer is great in this role too. Some really amazing performances from Castellaneta. I don't really have anything negative to say about this one really. I think it's pretty much perfect. So let's move over to the jokes of this segment and see if they hold up. The jokes in this segment are great. My favourite joke is definitely the Wiggum one. My husband is on a murderous rampage. Over. Well, glad that's over. And of course, Homer's little freak out, don't mind if I do, is really funny, and it's really well voiced and acted. Really funny segment with tasteful parody humour. Overall, nothing negative to say, it's all positive. So let's move on to the characters. Homer is portrayed very differently to the standard status quo of the show, and obviously this is for the sake of the segment, but the choice to make his breakdown based on not having beer and TV was a clever idea to fit into Homer's character. Marge fits well as the antagonist to Homer, and I do see this as more of a Homer story than a Marge story, honestly, so I see her as the villain to Homer, She just won't let Homer kill her. Come on, Marge, just let him. He really wants a beer. Moe made sense as the barman. I just wish we got to see Bart ride the tricycle, and also maybe see Sherry and Terry as the two twins. I mean, they would fit in perfectly. But anyway, on to the second segment. Time and Punishment opens with the Simpsons at breakfast, but Homer has his hand in the toaster. After getting his hand free twice, Homer takes the toaster to the basement to try and fix it, but he accidentally makes a time machine. This is our inciting incident, and I gotta say I love the concept. It's so wacky, but at the same time it's not overly complicated. It's stupid, sure, but it doesn't waste time pretending that it makes sense. After meeting Mr. Peabody and Sherman, Homer is sent back to the dinosaur age when he remembers Abe telling him not to change anything. Weird flashback dream sequence, but do you know what? I can believe that Abe told Homer this on his wedding day. Homer kills a mosquito by accident, and this is our plot point 1, as it appears to shift us into the second act, and it's also the main conflict of the segment. Homer goes back to his time, but it turns out that now Ned Flanders is the supreme leader of the world. Homer is forced to go to the Re-Education Center, and after some smiling, Homer queues up to have part of his brain removed. But after seeing Moe and Marge and the results of the procedure, he runs back away to the house and goes to the toaster to go back to the dinosaur era. A T-Rex attacks Homer and he accidentally kills a land-dwelling fish. Homer goes back to be a tiny, minuscule bug compared to his family, who then try to crush him. He then goes back to the dinosaur era again, sneezing, causing the death of many dinos. Homer then transports to this seemingly perfect universe. He's rich, Selma and Patty are dead, but there are no donuts. Homer can't stand it and rushes back, just before he misses the rain. Willie dies again, and Homer goes crazy in the dinosaur era, killing everything he sees. This is the midpoint and Homer's known return point, I guess, or you could argue maybe the midpoint was before and this is the plot point 2. I'm not too bothered to apply it to this segment. We see Kang and Kodos watching Homer go through several different realities, and then they get turned into Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Gotta shove Kang and Kodos in somewhere, I guess. Homer arrives back once more, and the family seems perfect, but they have big tongues, like lizards. I guess this is the plot point 2, or maybe the climax, whatever you want to see. It's kind of difficult to apply, like I said, to this segment, but honestly I don't care, as I love this segment quite a lot. Overall, like I said, I like it. Sure, it's nothing amazing or well-grounded, but it's funny, it's wacky, and it's kind of experimental. Everything I want from a Treehouse of Horror segment. It's also funny as hell. So, let's look at the humour. Honestly, every moment of this segment has me smiling. It's a real exciting, wacky adventure. My favourite joke is definitely the raining donuts, but it's kind of painful to watch. Homer had the perfect reality right there. I wish I didn't kill that fish is a great line, and the moment where Homer goes mental smashing up everything in the dinosaur era is very funny and very satisfying. The jokes are nothing complex, but they deliver. Of course, this segment is pretty much just Homer. We see some alternative universe versions of Ned, Marge, Bart and Lisa, but it's not the people that Homer knows. So let's look at Homer. So obviously Homer is the protagonist, and I think they have a really good arc for him here. He starts as someone who tries his best not to change anything but makes a mistake, and after mistake after mistake he just can't take it anymore and smashes reality in two. I think this is actually how Homer would act, although I hope at the very least he wouldn't actually give up on that sweet upper class life. Ned, although an alternative version of him, is very good in this episode. Seeing him as this supreme dictator is very refreshing and a great concept. It'd be easy to use Burns here instead, but something about it being Flanders makes the whole thing creepier and stranger. Anyway, let's move on to the next and final segment. The final segment is called Nightmare Cafeteria, and it opens with Bart trying to pull a prank on Krabappel, but all the other kids don't follow his lead. Bart is sent to detention, but the detention room is overcrowded. This is the inciting incident for our story, and I gotta say, I love the school setting. It's a familiar environment from the status quo of the show, so you don't expect anything too evil to happen here. Bart is taken to the cafeteria instead of the detention room, and lunch lady Doris is tripped by Jimbo and she spills some sort of sauce on him. Skinner takes Jimbo to the kitchen where he is killed and cooked. This acts as plot point 1 and sends us into the second act. The school staff eat Jimbo and Bart wonders where Jimbo is. Uta pushes in line for a third burger and Skinner sends him to detention. The following day, the school has an Oktoberfest where they eat poor Uta. Skinner assures the kids that Uta is fine, but the kids know what's up and tell Marge. But Marge tells them to face their own battles. Sort of out of character, but this is separate to the status quo, so I give it a pass. This acts as the midpoint and the no return point for Bart, and Lisa too. After Milhouse sees a book on how to cook him, the 3 remaining kids decide to sneak out. This is our plot point 2 and shifts us into the third and final act of the segment. They see the conditions that the other kids have been put in and they are attacked by lunch lady Doris. Willie comes to the rescue, but he's quickly again killed. For the third time. He really is bad at this. The 3 kids then get cornered by the teachers, Milhouse falls in the big blender, Bart comments that someone will save the 2 Simpsons children, but they fall into the blender. This is our climax scene, and I don't know, I kinda wish they succeeded in defeating the teachers. Maybe they end up eating the teachers as some poetic irony. Bart wakes up, it turning out to just be a nightmare. The whole family surround him, but some fog that turns people inside out seeps into the room. The family get turned inside out and have a show tune to close off the episode. I get this is meant to be an ending scene for the episode, and it doesn't exactly correlate to the nightmare cafeteria stuff, but I really dislike it. I think the segment could have just ended with the kids being defeated, or them defeating the teachers. For the most part, the plot in this episode is good. I like the conflict contrasted with the familiar setting of the school, and the teachers being the sinister villains was a really great idea. But the real villain is Wendell. Here he is in Bart's class. Bart gets sent to detention, yet Wendell is already there. It's too full, so Bart goes to the cafeteria, where Wendell is too. Wendell eventually gets sent to the detention by Krabappel, but he's nowhere to be seen in the cages or the free range. Strange. Where did Wendell go? Overall, the plot in this one is really good, but the subject matter is difficult for jokes. I mean, we are talking about murdering and eating children. So, let's look at the humour. I think, in terms of jokes, this segment is not as strong compared to the 2 previous ones. That being said though, I still think there are some good jokes. The free-range children is by far the best visual one. I really like Skinner's little cover-ups, especially the one about Uta. In fact, you might even say we ate Uta, and he's in our stomachs right now. Something about Marge telling the kids to face their own issues is just kind of hilarious. Out of character, but that coming from Marge is just funny. So, Marge is a little out of character in this segment, but what about Lisa, Bart and Skinner? Let's look at those 3. Bart is the obvious protagonist of this one, and I think he works very well for it. He obviously has this rivalry between Krabappel and Skinner in the status quo storyline, so it makes sense why he would be the protagonist here. I think he acts within character for the most part in this segment, although I kind of think it would have made more sense if he got into trouble much quicker. I don't see Bart being one of the 3 final kids not in detention. Lisa acts as a good ally character for Bart, but Skinner, man, whoa! Skinner is super evil, and just like Flanders in the previous segment, I think this contrast to the regular Skinner works really well. He serves a very sinister antagonist, but at the same time is able to deliver perfect jokes. Anyway, that is all 3 segments covered. Now let's look at the score. I think all 3 segments are pretty amazing segments, each having really strong and unique aspects to them. So of course, I think Treehouse of Horror 5 is a good episode. The strongest segment in my opinion is The Shinning, followed by Time and Punishment, then followed by Nightmare Cafeteria. I think the only one I wish they did more with was Nightmare Cafeteria. I just think the "It Was All a Dream" ender was kind of unneeded, and I think they could have done something better to wrap up the segment. If I had to rate each segment separately, I would give The Shinning a solid 10, honestly. Time and Punishment would get a 9, and Nightmare Cafeteria would get a 7. Using Google to work out the mean, I get 8.66667, but I don't do 0.5s or point anythings. So, I need to decide if this episode is an 8 or a 9. So, Treehouse of Horror 5 is a solid 9 out of 10. Now, let's move on to the wheel. So, let's see what episode we shall review next. So, the next episode we will be reviewing is Simpsonrama. Ooh, okay.